Okay, we
Bring it back up, please. All right, we're back in session.
Okay, so continuing, edit number 3. This is one that after we had our training with iCrimp, and I had a brief, kind of discussion about that training. We talked about introductory periods, right? And I put some language on, and I'm kind of putting this ball in your court where we could, because we're going to be at will, right, with this new policy.
I got that right on the front page here.
Right.
I don't see at will anywhere in this.
It's
Maybe I missed it. I was going through it.
It's on the 60-page document prominently. And this is just the 4-page updates.
Yeah, well, I didn't see it on the 60-page one that I went through, so I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I may have missed it too. I
Okay.
went through it pretty quick.
it's referenced in Chapter 7 and 10 of the new policy. But
Anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead.
anyway, for an introductory period, a lot of times, like what we're doing now, is they're going to be at-will employees, like currently in our current, they're at-will during their 12-month introductory period, and then they move to for cause after that. And so originally, I removed the whole introductory period paragraph altogether because they're at-will when they're hired, and they continue to be throughout their employment. I have had a number of discussions about some benefits of having an introductory period. That could be 6 months, it could be 12 months, where it's just a time for the employee to demonstrate if they can do the job or not. And at the end of that period of time, it's kind of just an evaluation period, like, do we keep you or not? And it's more of a direction to management than it is anything that would change their status like currently, So anyway.
And on that one, after listening to that thing, I disagree with that lady somewhat. I think that whether you call it an introductory period or a probationary period, I think that is a coaching period.
Sure.
That's when we as supervisors, we make sure that this individual is going to be a good employee. And it's not well, if you don't do this, I'm going to fire you. It's a coaching opportunity. And she talked a lot about documentation.
Mm-hmm.
And this reminds the supervisors, document the process. Document during the probationary period, during the introductory period, that I think that it's a reminder that we have an obligation to the employees to help them move forward. Mm-hmm. To me, it's not a disciplinary action, because if they're not a good employee, they're not a good employee. Plain and simple. It doesn't matter how long they've been here.
Yeah.
So.
Other thoughts?
I'm a bit concerned about the wording here, because one of the things we're talking about is maybe they're not a good employee, and then we discover that within the first month or so and decide, this isn't going to work out. As I read this language here, I think you could interpret this, especially if you're the one that's getting let go, is that you have 12 months to prove yourself, and if they try to let you go within that, I know we're at will, but I could see how easily you could take this to read, oh, you got 12 months to get up to speed. And I'm sure that's not what we want to say.
Okay.
So I don't think this language is going to work.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is you're in favor of having an introductory period, but you'd like the language to change.
Well, I think that's part of and she also talked about sending out the acceptance letter. I think that's part of the acceptance letter, that you're going to have a period of time that we're going to evaluate you.
Yeah.
Whatever time period that is, it could be from 1 month to 12 months. Because we're not giving them a raise after this unless we put that in the introductory letter or the acceptance letter. So I think that's a key part that we haven't been doing, or have we been sending out acceptance letters?
We call it a conditional offer letter, and I'm in the process of updating that. Some departments are very diligent with it, some are not, and I haven't been enforcing it too tightly.
And so that could be, it shouldn't, really may not have to be part of the policies. It may be part of the introduction letter that explains, this is what we're going to do with you as an employee, each one individually. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I know we don't want to see this.
Yeah, I
And I
agree. It
do
looks like
agree.
12 months.
I do agree that I don't see any problem with having a probationary period. And I understand, Ernie and I wrote the same thing. I didn't agree with a lot of things that were said there. Some I liked, some I did not like. I liked the letter. I thought that was very good.
Yeah.
But some of the things I thought were just, no, we're not going to do that. So
Okay.
so this needs some more work, I think. I think it's good to have a probationary period, but I think we need to work on where we're going to put that language and how we're going to phrase it.
Okay. Yeah, because in this section, and it's going into the it's a section where it talks about appointments, right? And so I could update the language and bring this to you again on Tuesday.
Well, and just like Dylan just got a promotion, and actually there should have been an acceptance letter submitted there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're moving people within your office, there is a probationary period. There is an acceptance that,
Yeah.
we're believing that you can do this. We're giving you this money. This is saying that we have confidence in you. But if it doesn't work out, do they have the ability to go back to their previous job, or are they just done?
Under the current policy, they are their introductory period begins when they get promoted, and the fallback is what I call it. That's not what the policy calls it, but the fallback is if it's available, right? But it's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
So
And part of that is in the letter to me, because we're talking to that
Yeah.
individual at that time.
and for me, I would say if those conditional offers need to mirror and quote the policy, and the policy is kind of like the standard, and the letter is gets its authority from it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I can work on that, but the direction is favorable. We do want introductory periods for all employees, and just redo the language on it. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, let's look at what we can come up with.
Okay, and a lot of this language is copy and paste from the current policy with some twist to it for the at-will piece.
Yeah.
But I can massage that more. So, okay, that's good direction. Okay, edit 4. Okay, this was the one we've talked about a few times now with the maximum accrual of sick leave. Currently, it's at 720. We've talked about going as low as 320, and I think in our last meeting, I thought we had settled at 480, but I just wanted to demonstrate that here, if we're
Yep.
still on track with that.
Yes.
I have a quick question on that, implementation-wise. And maybe this feeds into the bottom part too, but
Mm.
are we going to, is the new maximum for all employees going to be the 480 hours? So if I'm at 500 and I use 4 hours, then my new max will be that until I get to the
Yeah,
480?
until you get to the 480.
That is going to be a manual tracking process for our office, just so you guys know, which leaves room to human error.
I thought there was going to be no change for current employees for any of that, and the new employees would be under the new rules.
No, the last we talked about and agreed on is we'd come down to 480 hours, and if you had more than that, you wouldn't acquire anymore until you come down to 480, and then, which is part of the process of getting us to the point that we don't put the money aside for this. And so when somebody quits, somebody retires and stuff like that, it makes it more manageable for us to hire, to run the county, and to be effective.
That's gonna be a tough one. I thought that the current employees, I know we had talked about that, but I thought that we had come around to leaving sick and vacation for current employees where it's at.
No. That's when we had the discussion, and you weren't included in the original discussion about all this, but
Yeah. I honestly, I didn't know. I guess I thought we were doing what Jason is saying right now, that the employees that were hired up to whenever this takes effect, there's no change. They're pretty much gonna be at the 720, they can build back to 720. Maybe I did misunderstand some of these subsequent conversations. This has been a bit complicated. But I do think we need to figure out how, if that's the direction the commission wants to go, how that's gonna be handled. Because you're saying this is gonna be very, very difficult to make this change, right, with the current employees?
It's gonna be a manual tracking process. Because we can't change the limit to 480. If we do that, it's gonna drop all employees down to 480, regardless of how many hours you have. So we'll have to do a new sick code for new employees at 480, or anybody, I guess yeah, I'll just have to work out how we're gonna implement it.
If the current employees stayed at 720, and the new employees, after whatever date this is approved, are at 480, that's not gonna be a manual tracking
No,
process?
because we would just give the new employees a new sick code with the 480 max. So that would be, that's easy.
Mhm.
Because this is a tough one, because I agree that 720 is a crazy number, and it's what it's been, but
We're also gonna have
yeah, it's gonna be a
handful of
little
employees that are
tricky.
gonna retire out.
I'm sorry?
I foresee a handful of employees that are gonna retire out, then come back to work.
Let them retire.
Yeah, I kind of feel like
Other
that too.
than then if we make this change, if we can plan for it in October, then we could budget for retirements. But right now, we don't have the money. Say we have 3 or 4 employees that retire out with this being the prompter, we don't have it anticipated. Next year, we could anticipate it and plan for it with money.
well,
Just-
Yeah.
these are hard decisions.
Yeah,
And
it is.
we've talked about it for a while. We've had it, I don't know how long we've been talking about it. But it's
3 years.
It's been tough
Yeah.
decisions, and it's time to do it, is all I can say. And I'll just, right at the front of personnel policy, it isn't your fault, it's us. It's us as commissioners that do policy, 100%. And I appreciate input, but the decision's ours. And it's a tough one, and it's a big one. So, tighten your belt. All right?
Okay, so move on.
So what does that mean?
So, yeah, so what do you want?
Well, I think that there isn't going to be a vote today.
No,
I think it's still a discussion. I think that there's, like I said, I've got a few things in here marked up that eventually us 3 are going to have to take this, we're going to have to look at it 100%, be convinced that that's the direction we want to go, and then come in and make a motion. And I'm not pushing things off.
no?
We've gone through this and
Right.
studied this out, but as I've read through this and stuff, and that's right on the front page, it says, the commissioners make policy.
Right.
And if there's any deviation from that policy, it can't be more. You can't give your departments more than what the commission says. And so, it's just, we're at that point.
Yep.
If we're gonna do this, otherwise, why are we changing anything?
You
So-
might- And, I think, as you said, we've been working on this for months now, at least you know, since the first time I submitted it, and I appreciate taking time to do it right, right? So I don't want to come across as being pushy otherwise. I don't want it to take forever either,
How
right?
many-
So,
How many current employees do we have that are over 480?
It's like,
do we have that?
it's under 20, isn't it?
I haven't seen that report for a while.
Yeah.
I haven't updated it since I last reported to you guys,
Yeah, so,
but that's something I could do.
Yeah, it seems like
Small
it's,
number.
I think there was
In my head.
80.
80 that are
I was thinking there
over?
were 80
I thought there was
employees
a fair
over
amount.
480.
Oh, over 480, yeah, okay. I was thinking close to the 7, over the 720. All right.
So you think there's about 80 employees that are over 480
If
now?
I remember correctly, I think there was like 81.
Okay.
That's quite a few. Okay.
But I mean, that's information I could definitely, yeah. We had 81 employees over 480 hours, and this was in March when I looked at this.
okay.
okay.
March 1.
We actually have another session starting at 11 o'clock. That's scheduled right at 11 o'clock. So where do you want to go with this right now?
The only,
Let's go ahead and have you review to the end of this. And then
Let's,
I'll visit with you and we can talk more about what I have written down.
yeah, and I have some things too, so maybe we should just move into the next section.
Move it to its own session.
Reschedule this thing, yeah,
That's
for,
fine.
yeah.
Okay. When would you like to reschedule for? Like a week from today, or?
can we do it Tuesday? What's our schedule next Tuesday? Let's get this done.
Tuesday's really usually light, right? So that would be a good time.
But it needs to be its own meeting.
Yeah.
You can
Next.
do one at,
Next Tuesday would work in the afternoon.
we have a tax deed hearing at 1:30, and you can do it after that.
I could do 2:30 to 3:30.
Do it at 2 o'clock. Tax deed hearing shouldn't take very long.
Okay.
Okay?
And this is Tuesday, the 9th, we're gonna do this, right?
We'll make it, yeah, it's standalone meeting. This is enough that,
Yeah, that's gonna take a while. And in addition to this personnel policy, there's the emergency operations, or EAP, Emergency Action Plan 2, that was,
yeah.
again, this is a second or third draft. You know, we're just trying to polish up the last few things. So if we could do that on Tuesday as well, that'd be great.
Okay. All right.
Just get across the finish line with these. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Anita.
Okay, so I'm Anita Jaimes, Bannock County Assessor, and I'm back to review these nonprofit and talk about maybe a different process. But, so, we went over and through these, and we do have some questions, but I think the biggest question that we have, that I know you guys have, is gonna probably be for our legal, more than anybody, is several of these, more than one, have ownership that they lease to a nonprofit. For example, there's one in here for Youth Ranch. And Youth Ranch is actually owned by an LLC out of Boise. And so that's going to be the biggest question. We have Pocatello Hospital in here with those same type of questions. There's several of them in here like that. And that to me is a question that is It's going to have to be answered by legal.
I walked out and had 4 lawyers out in the hallway the other day when I was going through these, and I asked them that question. If it's owned by or leased, if it's leased, they don't get it. Plain and simple.
It's the owner.
It's the owner.
Okay. And honestly, that's how I've always understood it, but.
And if you have like a specific, if I can talk today, if you have a specific case, or question, let me know about it. I'm free to go and research it, and because I can answer it like in broad strokes here, like in this meeting. But
Okay.
if you have something specific about someone, like
Specific.
what it is, yeah, feel
Okay.
free to send it over to us, and we can chat and look at it
Okay.
and see if there's something that would change that answer.
So if the owner is the person who submits the application,
Doesn't matter if they're leasing
doesn't
it.
matter as long as it's leased? Okay.
If they're claiming it because somebody leasing it,
Okay.
the owner still has to pay taxes on it.
Which one
So-
is it? You can figure that out.
When you say if it's a lease, they don't get it. Okay, so let me just make sure I clarify what we're saying here. The owner of the property is the person that submits for the tax exemption, is that correct?
In most of these cases, yes, that's what they're doing, yes. The owner,
It should be.
like in,
So this is my question here.
This one
Is the
right here
owner
is-
the only one that's permitted to submit an exemption for a piece of
would be
property?
the owner.
So if I lease a piece of property, and I have, let's say I'm a nonprofit, I lease a piece of property from some other person, I can't request a tax exemption on that piece of property that I don't own, is that right?
It should be the case, yes. Yes, you're right.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I understand
I
that.
guess my question, sorry to butt in here, is, so say I'm a nonprofit, and I get in on a trip of that lease, where I'm required to pay the taxes, but yet I'm a nonprofit, then how does that work?
Well, it's subject to your lease agreement.
We have nothing to do with that.
Okay, so then we can still tax.
That's in, yeah, that's in the lease agreement. That's between the leasee and the leaser.
Okay.
It's the owner of the property, is my understanding, is the person that, the only person legally that can apply for a tax exemption.
Owner, yes.
So I can't, if I own Crowder's Hospital and I'm a nonprofit hospital, I can't go and lease some property where I'm gonna set my hospital up and get a tax exemption. The owner is the only one that can do that. So I'd have to own the land.
Correct. We have, and that's an issue on the majority of these that are sitting in the stack.
Run that by me again?
That's the majority of what's sitting in the stack is ownership issues. Yeah. However, I do have a question, Brian. If they're renting space, does that make a difference? Because we have an entity that rents a small room to store stuff for Idaho State. They store stuff for the Idaho State Police, and they have applied every year, of course, but what about that, about a rental? Because they're just renting that space, from what I understand, and they have, and in this one, they actually have a letter,
Hold on a second,
a
Anita.
legal letter as well.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when you say, I'm having trouble following this, so when you say they're just renting the space, can you name say the owner of the property? Be
I
more
haven't.
specific. I mean, you don't have to name
Oh.
the particular individual, but when you say they're doing this and they're doing that, I'm not sure who they is what I'm saying.
And you can name
Okay.
the properties. We can talk about
Oh,
the properties.
okay.
These are applying, and it's public information. They've
Okay.
applied for tax exemption. It is public information. Like I keep saying, I want to publish it in the paper, every one of them that apply
Okay.
for this.
Okay, so this one is Dales Incorporated,
Mhm.
and they have space that is rented out to,
They owe
store.
taxes on it.
Pardon?
They owe taxes on it.
Okay. I mean, that's when, and that's gonna come before
I
you.
don't care who they're renting to, they owe taxes on it.
Okay.
And they can charge whoever they're renting to for the taxes.
Okay, I have a question on the Wesley Foundation, and I know that they were in last year, I think, because they do have a basement apartment, but on their application, they don't say that they're, oh, did
I
they?
verified through email that rent
Oh, I
rent
missed
is,
that.
mhm.
Okay, so this one's okay.
So it'd be 50%.
Sorry. Yeah, okay. And some of these are percentages. You guys all questioned this one on Portneuf Trust. It's owned by the, it's on the land owned by the Fransons down in Lava. As you're going into Lava, there's that little, cute little country church over on the left. They are a legitimate church, St. Germain's Foundation, and we only exempt the church. We don't exempt any of their ground. We only exempt the church on this one. So,
Who's the owner of the land?
the owner of the land is Fransons.
So the church is not the owner of the land.
So they own the church. They do own the church, but it is a church, and so they have an
So,
organization
is this like,
with that church.
I mean, would this be similar to someone in a mobile home park where you own your home, but you're renting the space, and so there's a different company that owns the land? Is that similar? Or?
So the church hasn't been separated out from the Fransons' property.
Right, it just sits on their
It
property.
sits on their property. So the owner of the land is the Fransons,
Yes,
so they should be taxed.
okay.
The church itself, the building, so that one's a tough one.
Are they renting?
Because it's just like the Native American there in Incan.
It is.
I mean, he's come in and he's brought his documentation that says he's a legitimate church. I disagree with it 100%, but he had the documentation, so he's tax exempt. The Fransons, oh, that one's a tough one. I know the church you're talking about,
Right.
and they farm all the land around it, but
So the Bransons
That-
don't own the church building. Is that right? Or do they own it?
They do own
the
church.
family, it's a family church,
It's a family
basically.
church.
A family church.
Yeah.
I mean, they are under a, how do I put this? They're under an actual,
They were almost Amish,
right.
family connected, come and bought some ground down around Lava, and then they built a church on the ground. So they're not claiming the whole ground,
No,
the
they're
farm
just
and
claiming the
everything,
church.
but just where the church is. That's one that Brian's gonna have to look at.
Yeah, and if you have questions on these, like, I don't mind if you send them, we can look at them individually, because sometimes there's statutes that go one way or the other. We'd be happy to
That's tough.
We're
do
under
that.
a time crunch
No
at this
worries.
point because we
Yeah.
have to have a decision by the 15th of May.
tough one.
So, and the commissioners,
You're not trying
they're
to
gonna
claim
need to read it in by the
all the other
11th
ground.
because of the way the dates fall. So,
The church.
Okay.
You let
But
the
yeah.
church go.
And
That
preferably
improvement, then you
before
tax
the
everything
15th.
else.
You what?
Preferably before the 15th. I need to talk to the State Tax Commission and tell them they need to
Let's,
get rid of that thing.
Yeah.
let's tax the ground and not the church,
Okay,
not the building.
okay.
Because and we're happy if you want to send it to us for us to do a look, and then we can have the statutes and case laws in front of us.
Well, if it becomes a problem with a bunch of people popping up churches,
Yeah.
but church is pretty set and dry on situations. This one's, because it is almost an Amish group. Used to be, I mean,
Yeah, and yeah. And they're based, the actual church is based out of Oregon. I mean, it is an actual denomination of some sort.
all right.
Okay. Portneuf Grange was questioned by John, or by Commissioner Crowder, sorry. And Portneuf Grange is a benevolent organization, and they're kind of like the Lions Club and that kind of thing. So that's what that is, and so I think they're legitimate.
You think they're legitimate?
It's my opinion on that one. What?
Yeah, I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah, and it's, yeah. Pocatello Art Center, we've always given them a 50% because they are an educational thing. And so we just tax the portion that they rent out up above. And they do own it. The owner does own it. So it's all owned by the same owner. They just rent out space to rent up upstairs.
Okay, let me ask you a question about that. So this is, what category are they in?
This would be under the educational one, the school one. I think they've cited, well, they've actually cited fraternal benevolent. It's interesting.
Well, they're nonprofit, right? They're a nonprofit. They're not a nonprofit.
Well, a nonprofit doesn't mean that they're tax exempt, just because of that.
Right, so but they are, I don't know, it's interesting that they have that they're a benevolent fraternal organization.
Check the wrong one.
Pardon?
They might have just checked the wrong.
They might have checked the wrong box, because it usually falls under, it's used for educational purposes, because they do teach art classes over there, and they do different things with students and stuff.
So, under that term, everybody that has daycare could claim tax exempt because they're an educational. Everybody that has a preschool.
Technically, yeah.
I thought being a nonprofit was a component of this.
It's a part.
Well, I didn't say it was the whole thing,
Yeah.
but I thought it was a component. If you're not a nonprofit, I thought you didn't qualify at all.
But I have a lot of people that come in and say, well, we're nonprofit, so we get it automatically. No, that isn't the.
No, and that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking at there are certain, certain criteria you have to meet, one of which is being a nonprofit, was my understanding.
That is one of the criteria.
And so any one of these, if you fail to meet it, you're out, right?
It's at the board's discretion at that
Is
point.
that correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of statutes on the exemptions for taxation, and each one can fit into different categories. But you'd have to, in order for the board to even consider an exemption, they would have to fit on one of those exemption categories, depending on what it is. That's why I don't mind if we have it. If I could get my eyes on the application and see what they're applying for, I can go directly to that statute and do an analysis and let you guys know if something's gonna go one way or the other.
Give that to Brian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because when they fill out the application, they should be marking under what statute exemption they want, right?
I
Or do
think
they
she
just?
misjudged on this one.
they want-
And I've seen.
We don't know. They filled out the application.
Right, and we.
So
right.
it isn't correct. Let's give it to Brian, and we go by what information is there.
Okay, so the next few, I gotta see if I have more in here. On Bingham Memorial. These are ones that hit every year. This is one that is actually, its owner is BMH Incorporated, but the organization is Crestwood Enterprises.
And Crestwood Enterprises is not a
And so they're,
nonprofit.
pardon, they are a nonprofit?
No,
they're
they are
not.
not.
No. And so they're applying. And on that one, they're citing Idaho Code 63602D, which is other.
And I'm,
It's a hospital.
It's a hospital. It's like a, yeah, it's up by the hospital. It's a clinic up there. So,
I've been,
That one is-
I've been studying that quite a bit, and I went to the State Tax Commission yesterday, and these are some of the ones that they wrestle with that ultimately they say falls back onto us to make the choice what we want to do with them. And as you go through and I read through that section fairly in depth, and granted, I don't have Brian's sharp legal mind. But in order to be a hospital and get any tax break, it says you should demonstrate that you're a nonprofit corporation and that you received the exemption from taxation from the IRS. And then you also have to submit to the county an annual report showing how much money you write off every year for charitable purposes. I have not seen any of that.
So deny it.
Yeah, that's right, in the statute.
That is the statute, section 4, A, B, and section 5 and 6.
okay. Next one I have is Southeast Idaho Community Action Agency, which is SECA. They have filed for this, of course, all the time because they are basically they're a government type agency. I don't know how that falls, but yeah.
And what are they claiming?
They are claiming 63602 GG. And this is St. Anthony Place. Over here is what this is.
It's what?
Off of St. Anthony Place, the old St. Anthony Hospital where they
Yeah.
house
All kinds of stuff.
all
there.
kinds of stuff. Yeah, they have people living in there that are developmentally disabled
And
also.
I'm okay with that one because of their
Yeah.
mission.
And I think that one's really okay.
Wait a minute. That's a government agency. Okay.
And we watch those, once they come off, once they sell, because they do sell, because once in a while they have a house, and so once they sell, we put them right back on the books. So we watch those. California waterfowl. I still, in my opinion,
They're not using that property for
And what-
education.
and what there's, well, this year they're citing it as a religious exemption.
And I know, I read
And
all
they're-
through that.
it's not, and I know
I'm
what
saying
they're,
no.
I know the reasoning behind that, and it's not a good reasoning, because like I said the other day, I will take full blame for that, because we left a piece of property go exempt that we didn't catch, and it wasn't, you guys didn't approve it, it was never applied for by the church, and so that's what they're citing in this, so I'm gonna say, yeah.
So based on your recommendation, I say we disprove that one as well.
Pardon?
Yes, disprove.
Okay. So Empower Humanity, the Levitt Center, they have not, unless I'm not seeing something, Christy, you're better at this than me sometimes, they're saying the property is used for school or educational purposes. Our question is the house that sits next door.
And we've already decided that. The
That's what I
house is
thought.
already
So I-
taxed.
Yeah, and we have taxed it, but they're not saying that, anything about the house. So I just wanted to make sure that we were okay continuing.
Well, and I have concerns about the Levitt Center too, but we've had them in here a few times and they give some scholarships and all kinds of stuff, but it's a business to me. I mean, they charge everybody to come and go to school there.
Isn't it a nonprofit?
They have filed for a 6350C, yes, they did in the past. So, yeah, it would be a nonprofit for them, but again.
Which is
doesn't-
just one of the criteria. It's nonprofit.
Right.
It does education. What other criteria are in that category?
What statute are they under?
They're under 63602E, which is for educational school purposes. Which is what,
Okay.
yeah,
All property used exclusively for nonprofit school or educational purposes. Property used for charter school purposes, and all property from which no profit is derived and which is held or used exclusively for endowment, building, or maintenance purposes of schools or educational institutions. And then there's, if property is used primarily for nonprofit school purposes or charter school purposes, or for business purposes from which revenue is derived, which revenue is not related to the educational purpose for which the nonprofit school or charter school exists, the assessor shall determine the value of the entire property, the part used for nonprofit school purposes or charter school purposes, and of the part used for the unrelated business purposes, and the portion of the building used for nonprofit school purposes or charter school purposes, and for business administration of the nonprofit school or charter school shall be exempt from taxation. Possessory interests and improvements are state college, but that wouldn't apply here. So those two would be under that statute. And again, if you want to, even after the decisions are here, if you want to send them in a civil ticket request, we're happy to get eyes on them again to have an idea. It's a little difficult to go as in the meeting here as we're going back and forth, but
I get
I'm
that.
happy to You what?
I get that, yeah.
So I mean, we're happy to take a look at it,
So,
see what the commission's.
They are a nonprofit. Okay? They're not necessarily a charter school, but they are involved in educational purposes. What if we met them halfway and maybe gave them a 50% break on that?
You do
I
tax them
think
on
they
the
either meet the
house.
criteria or they don't. And to me, it sounds like they do. They're doing educational purposes. They're a nonprofit. I know they charge for their various classes and stuff, but some they give people, kids get them for free. I don't know, to me, it sounds legit.
And I'm okay either way.
And I'd say we go ahead and give it to him this time, and then we send it to Brian. We delve a little deeper into this and see. I mean,
Yeah.
But the house next door, go ahead and.
the house next door is
We
rental.
already talked about that.
Okay. And this is one that probably does need to be run by Brian, because it's a Sagebrush Step Land Trust. They have property out south of town. It's basically a conservation type thing,
See, and-
is what it
and
is.
I agree with that one after looking at that and then reading through the statute, because all they're doing is maintaining deer habitat. It's not for sale, they're not doing anything to generate any money on it.
And I do agree with that. The problem we've had with them in the past is they're kind of funny, because they want to pay taxes, but they don't want to pay that many taxes. They're funny. So they wanted me to put an ag exemption on it, which I can't do. I can't just put an ag exemption on. They're either all or nothing.
Well, they can harvest the deer
So-
and sell the meat.
Right.
Then they get an ag
So-
exemption for grazing.
So I'm actually good, I agree with Commissioner
Did they
Hawes
ask for a
that-
tax exemption?
Pardon?
Did they ask for a tax exemption?
Yes, they did. But
Well,
they
sounds
tried
like they
to,
get it.
they called me and said, can't you just put a little bit of value on it? I'm like, I can't do that.
Can the county take donations?
Yeah.
If we can, tell them
It's
to send
kind
it
of
I
in.
mean, if you want to charge them, you could do a 50% tax on it.
This is an interesting one. This is a leasing company, and this is personal property. And probably, again, it's probably one Brian's gonna have to look at, because,
It's in the schools.
yeah, well,
We talked
they,
about that last year and we charged them.
okay, I'm good with
I
that.
agree with that.
No,
Oh, so yes or no?
100%.
you
Oh,
have the denies.
okay, yes, that's right. Confused me. Okay, and we'll just go to this one. This is Portneuf Health Trust. And so they've filed on all these properties, and again, it comes down to ownership, I think. I think this is the
Are they a
one that,
nonprofit?
Portneuf Health Trust?
The health trust, I think, is.
The health trust is, but they are not the owner. Is the owner a nonprofit?
Let's see what it says here. Well, on this particular one, they have so many. On some of them, they are owned by PHT.
I think in the list we compiled, as far as all the different parcels that are concerned, there's a handful that are 100% owned, from what we can tell, and then there's a larger handful that's 23%.
Okay.
Owned by the
That's
health trust.
Pocatello Hospital LLC, yeah.
Charge those.
And
Pardon?
let's send that one to Brian.
Well, I think all the LLCs, we charge them, and let's know that that's going to be contested and come back and go up through the state again. Because again, in visiting with the State Tax Commission on this yesterday, they kind of side with that. If it's owned by an LLC, which that LLC is a part of a larger corporation that is for profit, there's no reason to grant them that exemption. And again, like we said with Bingham, they don't provide us an annual report of their charitable giving, and they don't meet the other one.
But on the Pocatello Hospital LLC, the only question I have is that we have that 23% sitting out there. I mean, that's the part you want me to take off and charge them for? Because that 23% is what they're getting on most of those, correct?
On that personal property.
Yeah, on most of the personal properties.
23% of what?
Pardon?
They're getting a tax break on the 23%? Or
No, they're
on the-
getting 23% exemption off of their
exemption?
value.
Okay. And this is, and the only reason I say this is what we just said against Bingham. Let's let Brian look at them real quick, and
Yep.
we're treating both of them the same.
Okay, I'm good with that. Idaho Youth Ranch is the one I brought up in the beginning. It's owned by an LLC, but the organization's name is Idaho Youth Ranch. So if you want to look at that one too, because it does have a letter.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. When we have these and we can look at them, put eyes, we can compare the statute and then give
Okay.
a recommendation.
Did you have any contact with Lever? The Lava Community Church, they have a house that was a parsonage, but it sounds like there's no parsonage living in it.
Charge tax on the house.
So I can charge tax on the house.
Well,
Okay.
hold up a second. So they have a house that is or could be used for parsonage, and it was used for a parsonage.
They
I don't-
rented it out for a short time, and now they're not renting it out.
When they rented it out, the money went to the church.
I would assume, yeah.
Is that a problem?
And they rented it out from January to like April.
Because I'm not sure that's a problem. If it's a church and they have this house and was originally a parsonage, but now there's nobody, the parson doesn't want to live there, so they're renting it out to someone else, but the money goes to the church and it's used for church purposes, I'm not sure that's a problem unless you're telling me it is.
I'd have to look.
Okay, so we need to have Brian look at it.
And I'm saying rent it out, or charge them, so.
Well, I'm saying I want to, well, so I guess Jeff will decide.
Brian can make the call.
Yeah.
If they're not renting it, then it's not generating any income, so that would be an undue burden on the church if we taxed it.
Except that mid-year, they rent it out.
And maybe
As
that's
they did.
okay, as far as I know. I mean, that's what I want to find out. Is that okay? Can you do that? I don't know why you couldn't. So, I mean, to me, it would make sense.
Then you're making profit off of it.
Well, they're not making
Okay.
profit because they're a nonprofit. The money's going into a
Oh, yeah,
nonprofit.
they didn't work anything.
So they're not really making profit. They're offsetting the
These
expenses
are
of
the
the
two that came in
organization.
late.
A taxpayer's expense.
All this, all of it.
Oh, that's what I'm
So, you know,
saying.
Unfortunately, we can't go there.
On this one here,
Right,
I'm more
But I-
particular on making them pay. They can come in and
yeah.
talk to us.
And I'm not.
And have the verification and the
Yeah.
justification.
Okay. So Brian will check it out.
Okay, so, these two, Portneuf Greenway Foundation and Pocatello Valley Educators, they both came in late. They were the ones that came in after the 18th. That were put under Kirsty's door.
And our policy is they're denied, and then they can come in and appeal. And I know you talk about them being put on the tax roll, but they didn't meet the deadline.
Right.
And that's set.
Right.
That's not
So-
set by us.
Right. And so, yeah, okay, and I'm good with that,
That's
but that's part of the process I want to discuss too, in a
Well-
minute, real quickly.
I think we have to be consistent with everybody. If are we gonna let individuals come in and after the fact, if there's a hard deadline and say, well, you get this and you get that, we're gonna do that for everybody. So then there's no deadline. So I think that's a problem. If we start you don't follow the rules and then we start letting people come in, well, ultimately, then anybody can miss the deadline
Yeah.
and do whatever they want.
And we had a lot of churches last year do it.
We have a
And
lot,
they
we're
came
gonna
back.
have a lot this year. We have, I believe it's 20 that haven't submitted applications, and, but I want to talk about that briefly.
And I
after
guess if they have to go to court and pay a lawyer because we deny it, because they didn't meet the deadline, and that's our justification, then they'll go to court and they'll pay for a lawyer.
I mean, we have the deadline on April 15th because you have to make a decision on it by May 15th.
So the last two, this one is the Church of Christ. They have 2 parcels, and they marked religious corporation. Why did I put that note on there? Oh, that's right, because they put it down as a religious corporation, but they said that it was personal property. It's not personal property, it's real property. I think they just, honestly, they just did it wrong, because they don't have any personal property parcels. It's real property parcels. So on that one.
Make a call.
Pardon?
Make a call.
Okay.
I mean,
Approve it or not.
Pardon?
Make the call like approve it or don't.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. We'll have that in a minute.
Oh,
Okay, and this last one is.
Anita, if I could just comment there real quickly, sorry to interrupt again.
No, you're okay.
But on questions like this, where if something comes across, are you getting these, you're getting these at the same time we get them?
no, she didn't get them at all.
No, I
They
didn't get
come to
them at
our
all.
office. We were the first ones to look at them. That's where we're
Well, I
changing
do and I
them.
don't. Okay, I'm in her, because she's stressing
Okay,
here.
you have it, you have access to
access.
them,
I have access, but,
but
And-
before,
yeah,
she used to get them, bring her recommendations to us, and with the last assessor, it become our office's duty. It all got thrown right there on Christie's lap. And that's part of this discussion is, how do we get back to where we were so that her office, that has all the knowledge, looks at them first, gives us a recommendation, and then goes through. And I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings or anything else.
We know.
Is that exactly what went on?
it is
mean,
exactly what went on, and.
I remember coming over into my office and saying, oh, it's not ours. You guys have full responsibility of it now.
I know. And so, yeah, so, I mean, either, well, yeah, let's look at this one first and then I'll go there. So this is,
I've been on vacation for 3 days and I'm a little anxious since I've been back.
I can tell, it's also a full moon, just so you know, it is a
Yes.
full moon.
Okay, that's fair.
Corinth Baptist Church, and they're doing business at as the Cornerstone Chapel Church. It's owned by the same owner, it's owned by Fannie Lee Lowe, and she owns the building, but she, I think,
She's in San Francisco.
she does live in San Francisco,
She's 80 years old.
and she's, I love her.
But she owns the building. Somebody else owns the building and rents it out to the church. So the church is not the owner. They need to pay taxes.
Okay. So this one, all right. So,
So now talk about the process.
okay, so but first I'd just like to say too that, well, this is part of this process thing, that I went through the 20 plus whatever that we still haven't received anything on. Here's my issue with those. And some of them actually didn't apply last year either. And so, but here's my issue with that is, and Brian can chime in here, but if we tax them, which is fine, I don't have a problem taxing them, if they come in during, if they would look at their assessment notice and come in during BOE, we could probably still look at that. You guys could probably still look at that. But once we get past that process and get them to tax deed, then we're taking away from the taxing districts. And I realize that statutorily they're exempt because they're a religious organization, but at the same time, they didn't come in and apply correctly. So last year, we canceled well over $1 million worth of value because they came in when they got their tax notice and said, oh, we didn't get it in, blah, blah, blah. This year, we have 20 of them. So if I were to just saying, if I weren't to put them on at full value, but I put them on at $100,000, say, that's $2 million worth of potential cancellations that could hurt the district. So I guess my question is, and Ernie, or Commissioner Moser, I know you guys do well. Commissioner Moser, my feeling on this is that we're probably not going to teach them a lesson until we make them pay those taxes. I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel. But at the same time,
But, so there's 20 parcels. And I have no problem, once we send out their tax notice, we could get a hold of them somehow and say, you have the opportunity to come up BOE, like any other citizen, to come and appeal that process, and we can correct it at that time. But if you go beyond BOE, we're gonna go ahead and let you pay taxes, or you can go to court.
and I'm good with that, if that's, yeah. But that comes back to the process of, do we want to continue the way we are? she's willing to give it back to me. Or we can take it back.
No, I think that just like John said, you guys are the professionals. Christie does an amazing job.
Oh, she
And,
does wonderful.
But you guys are the professionals. You go out and look at these properties, you know. And if they're renting it out, if they're doing different things that's different than is on their application, then we highlight that and we say, okay, you're lying to us.
Right.
And that's the way I feel. I loved it the first year I was here, and you guys come over, you and I talked quite a bit. And then after that, it fell apart. I think we need to get back to the communication part.
And I agree.
So the process, instead of what it currently is, we're talking about, she gets the forms in her office so that the professionals look at this stuff and make some determination, and then you come to us with some recommendations.
Right.
Well, that sounds a lot better than what we're doing now.
And again, she's honestly, in fact, I'm going to copy all her spreadsheets and everything because she does an amazing job. Yeah.
No argument here.
I have another question here. Were all of, this Portland of Health Trust, are all of them included, is everything they've asked for included in this package you brought to us today, or there were some that did not come? I want to look at all of those.
They're all, you've seen everything. You have seen everything.
No.
Yeah.
If, in light of what we're discussing today, even if I thought I was okay before, I'm not okay at the moment. I want to see all of them.
Do you want me to send you?
Okay, and I just want to caution that if you've had outside counsel with somebody, you won't be able to vote on any of that when it comes before the board. Okay? That's the way it is. If you go out and have personal contacts and conversations with people, when we come in and meet, then you don't have the right to vote again.
Okay.
I just want that out there in the clear.
But we're not voting at all right now.
Well, no, but all I'm saying is, if we go out and get information from individuals, then when we come together as a board, you have information that others were not allowed to have, and so you're not allowed to vote. So I know that there's some things that have been going on, and there was 3 packets on my desk when I got here today, but for me to take information and outside information and then try to bring that information into this, you had information that others didn't have, which means that you can't vote.
Okay.
So I just want that clear.
If that comes up, then we'll make sure that I recuse myself.
Well, I know there's been conversations going around, and you're getting more information, but for you to go ask Christie for things, that's 100% good.
Okay.
Okay?
And I think that's all we have.
So, yeah, if you and I just want to go down and check.
Yeah, we'll work on that and then I'll,
then-
yeah.
Brian, do you want just the digital files? We'll make sure that you get everything, or do you want the hard copies?
Yeah, as long as I just have the application and the information, I mean,
Yep.
I'd be more than happy to go and
Okay.
dig into it a little bit.
Okay.
And see if something needs to change, I can send my
Okay, sounds good.
advice over. But
Thank you
Okay.
very
you guys are doing
much.
great.
Then we are at recess until